We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around.
Hello and a wonderful good evening to all those of you who are joining us. My name is Renee Boyce. I am your host for this evening, your moderator for this evening's panel discussion, and I'm excited to be here with you. We have a wonderful discussion up ahead for you, and today's discussion is going to be all about parental conflict and divorce in the family. Mission of Family Fest is to bring help, hope, healing, and happiness to families. And that's our aim this evening. Now, in modern society, parental conflict and divorce are prevalent issues that affect many families. And sadly, we're hearing that the divorce rate in the church is similar to, or maybe even surpassing, the rate of divorce outside the church. And the repercussions of these conflicts can be profound, influencing emotional, psychological, and social development of children. Understanding the dynamics of parental conflict, the processes leading to divorce, and the strategies for mitigating adverse effects are critical for fostering healthy family environments. Now, this panel discussion, it aims to bring together experts from psychology, social work, law, and education. And we're going to delve into these important topics tonight. We're going to share our insights, our experiences, and we are going to explore effective interventions. It makes no sense us sitting here and giving you information about the possible causes for divorce, and then we don't offer any solutions for making relationships better. My panelists this evening have a wealth of information and experience under their belts. We have Mrs. Donatelle Cox, we have Mr. Fabian Sargent, and they each are going to tell you a little bit about themselves. Good evening, Fabian, and welcome.
Hi, good evening, Renee. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, I'm hearing you loudly and clearly. And we also have joining us, just jumping in here before you, Fabian, we also have Mrs. Shernell Clark. So I am excited about what is going to go down here tonight. So go ahead, Fabian.
Right. So Fabian Sargent is a professional social worker. We also have a background in public health. I am currently the executive director of Men Empowerment Network Support. Yesterday was my 13th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
I have 2 sons. So I specifically mentioned that against the backdrop of the topic this afternoon.
Yes, and it's very relevant. It is very relevant. So, once you get past one day, I believe that you have accomplished a lot in a marital union.
Telling me.
So thank you, Fabian. We have Mrs. Donatelle Cox. Donna. You have to unmute your mic, Donna.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Thank you. Name is Donatelle Cox. I am a professional counselor. I am also a guidance counselor at the Graydon City Secondary School. Like Fabian, I'm also going to be having my wedding anniversary coming up next month. It would be 32 years for George and myself. We've got Yeah. I deserve a medal. We've got two, I keep calling them children, but they are adults now. One is 29 and one is 21, and they're both doing very well. And apart from that, I love drumming, singing. I'm a very creative person. But most importantly, my passion is to help parents across the diaspora. And as a parenting consultant, that's also what I like to do.
Thank you, Donna. We are looking forward to the information that you're going to share with us. And Mrs. Clark, Charnel, good evening.
Evening, everybody. I am almost home, I promise. But I am very glad to be here again this evening. This is a couple of years that I've been here, invited by Family Fest to be on these panel discussions, and it's always rich in content, in different perspectives. But for me, I am the guidance counselor at St. Michael's School, and I've been an educator for this is 24 years now. I am passionate about my job. I don't just see it as a job, I see it as a calling. And I am a bit different tonight, and I will admit that I am on the other end of Donna and Fabian in that I am about to be one of those divorcees. So I can speak from that perspective of being on that end. But I mean, it is an experience, and you always learn from experiences. And I believe that anything that you go through in life should always be a learning lesson, something that you can use to share and to minister to others. So I look forward to tonight's discussion and put in my 2 cents worth, as they say. Thank you.
So thank you very much to our panelists, given you a little bit of insight about each of them. And of course, you can see the number of years they've been teachers or counselors, that these persons have not just turned up here and want to just shed 2 words for people to understand. These are persons who have a wealth of information, a strong background in the fields in which they operate. So why are we here tonight? What are our objectives? What are we trying to achieve? Well, first of all, we want to look at the root cause. You know, many people are looking at the fruit, what we are seeing in society, but more importantly, we need to address what's going on at the root to the issues of parental conflict. And we also want to take a look into the legal and the emotional processes which go on in a divorce. And how do these things impact our children? Our children are the current generation. We always say the children are the future, but the children are now. And like I had said earlier, instead of just giving you information about what happens when you're thinking about becoming divorced or some of the things that might lead up to divorce, what we want to do is to give you information, to give you strategies to manage whichever end of the spectrum or wherever on the continuum you might be, so that our children are not disadvantaged. So I have said enough. Let's get started. So we are going to start with our only male. Fabian, this question is for you. We want to get at things before they become too difficult. In my profession as a medical doctor, preventative medicine is more important than curative medicine. Try to get people before they become ill. And therefore, what are some of the early signs of conflict that you have identified in your years of working as a social worker?
Interesting question. And I will approach it from the point of view of the individual. Before there is conflict between two individuals, there's usually some type of conflict happening within the person, whether it is the husband or it is the wife. And until that individual can identify with that particular conflict, and oftentimes that conflict is hinged on so many things. And I always like to go back to traumas. Sometimes we go through life with carrying some baggage of experiences that would have happened to us throughout our lifetime, throughout our childhood, and we never really deal with it. sometimes those experiences lead to us not loving ourselves, feeling insecure about ourselves. And then we take a lot of that into intimate relationships and then ultimately into marriages. So we all carry some form of trauma, and those persons who really, really don't find the level of self-awareness to manage or deal with that conflict within themselves, oftentimes, take that into a relationship, which eventually ends up with a marriage, and then you can find breakdown. And I will start there because oftentimes we see issues in marriages and we think that it is something that just happened in the here and the now. But the inability of an individual to manage their own conflict, and the inability to communicate, the inability to be emotionally intelligent and manage what they're feeling, understand what they're feeling, and being able to act according to those feelings, those things usually then manifest in what we will consider the issues in a marriage or the conflicts in a marriage. You spoke very eloquently earlier about the fruit that we usually deal with and not the root. And if we are really supposed to manage and deal with the breakdown in marriages, we have to deal with the root. And the root is for each individual to really, really tap into self, to display a level of vulnerability where they are vulnerable to their other partner, I understand where it started with self. And if it is that you're going to be united, then you have to expand that vulnerability to your partner. If that vulnerability is unable to happen, then I can tell you, you will have challenges. And this can be in many different areas. So I'm just trying to be very general and very broad based. I guess as the conversation unfolds, we can get a little more specific.
Yeah, I agree. And we've heard this saying, hurt people hurt people. And
Yeah.
when we come into relationships and we're not whole ourselves, then we end up with conflict. Donna, what do you think are some of the causes of parental conflict today? Give us the, let's say, top 5 in your opinion.
Top
Because I
5
know I know that there are many.
specifically parental conflict. 1, the number of children under the age of 5. 2, the number of children over the age of 5. 3, to get children are one of the major causes of parental conflict. Having them, owning them, being responsible for them. Another one, number 4, money. Money is a major one, but children are connected to this whole aspect of money. And the 5th one has to be lack of being on the same page when it comes to the rearing and the raising of the children, whether it's discipline, whether it's the amount of love shown, the amount of time spent. Parental conflict hinges on those key areas. And as Fabian has said before, there are many more, but in a general way, when 2 do not become the 1 in the context of that marital union, or at least the relationship union, and the 2 parents are not on the same page, that creates the fodder for the fungus to grow on the tree.
Agreed. And if you had not mentioned that one about persons being on the same page, I would have mentioned that one for you. And I'm sure it would have come up in our conversation because 2 cannot walk together unless they agree. So my question for Shernell, as she is listening in intently on our conversation, here in Barbados, one of the most beautiful places on earth, one of the challenges that we have is health-seeking behavior. We find that there are persons who might be experiencing symptoms physically, and they don't want to go because of fear of what will be diagnosed. How can we get through to parents, Shernell, to say to them, when you are experiencing difficulty, reach out for help?
I think that what often happens is just what is the taboo thing with Barbadian culture is that adults generally don't like to reach out for help, and they do pass it on to the children, because you will find that sometimes a child will be going through some kind of emotional distress, and they would refuse to talk because they get to the point of saying that they don't want to tell anybody their business. But I think that sometimes what happens when parents do reach out, it's almost as if it is too late or it is very late in the game. So it is I think that as we are school counselors, and we begin to see things happening when children start to manifest or start to lash out or they're withdrawn. So then when we well, for want of a better word, when we dig and we investigate, that's the right word to say. When we investigate and we come to the point of on realizing that this is something that is deeper than just the child's behavior, it's the parents, then you have to almost strike carefully in terms of the things that you say, or you invite the parents in to let them know, well, the child is going through such and such, and sometimes you don't want to divulge what the child has said, because sometimes the child doesn't want you to say what they've said. So in a roundabout way, you just you let them know how it is affecting the child, and offer a suggestion as to how they themselves can handle the situation so that it doesn't affect the child or even affect them in the way that it might be. So it is quite a balancing act in trying not to divulge what the child might have said, but basically to ask the parents to get the necessary assistance. And a lot of them are some of them are reluctant because they don't want people to know their business, but bring it from the standpoint of how it is affecting the children. Sometimes that would cause them to want to um do better for their children. Sometimes it's basically just not going to happen because the two adults just can't see eye to eye. But for the sake of the children, in most cases, you will have the parents deciding then that they're going to reach out for that help and that assistance that is needed in order to keep safeguard their children.
Yeah, I think most parents really do want what's best for their children. You want to add something to this, Fabian?
Yes, I think that we have a culture that does not support reaching out, does not support getting help for
Asking for
any
help.
type of specifically when it comes to those any type of psychological issues or anything. We are very proudful people or shamefaced, as you may say. And on top of that, I think a lot of the adults do not know. We say that they don't, but I think that they don't even know how to do it because the culture that we raise up within our this society is not one where our grandparents or parents would encourage you to even talk. You are never allowed to talk within the household. You are never allowed to express your feelings. You are never taught how to really connect and communicate in a healthy way, especially men, especially men. And it makes it extremely difficult when you've not been taught how to communicate and how to connect with people, how to ask for help when it is necessary, to then all of a sudden wake up one day with a child thinking that you develop all of these skills that you should have developed over the years, or end up in a marriage where you need skills that you did not develop over the years. So it now becomes a type of new learning experience for individuals. We take for granted that because you're a man or you're a woman that you should know. And I am telling you that there are many of us who really don't know, who are still struggling to find out, how can I ask for help? Or who can I ask for help? You don't trust a lot of people, you've been hurt, you've been scared before, oftentimes with relatives. So you really decide, you know what, I can keep my mouth shut. So why do I reach out for help whenever I need it? So that particular culture is what plagues us, in my opinion, and plagues parents especially whenever they come across a situation with conflict in a marriage and then have to then deal with children.
Can I add something in here too as well, Renee? Um, there's a big elephant in the room that we're not talking about, and that's also domestic violence from both ends, from both the male and the female point of view. And many times, when reaching out does happen, it is the parent, one of two of the parents, reaching out saying, "My child is experiencing," and they list all of the bad behaviors of the child. Okay, and when you actually talk with the parent, you then find out what's really going on within the home. But that particular parent has never been able to find, as Fabian said, find a way to reach out to get help for themselves. Because once that help is sought, then the children's acting out would not necessarily take place. And that's something else we also have to look at. Sometimes people who come together should never have been together in the first place. If there is violence and certain types of behavior before you say I do, saying I do is not going to stop it. So when we're looking at red flags and signs, sometimes the signs that there's going to be parental and marital conflict happen before the relationship is cemented at that level.
You are correct. Sometimes in haste to get married, all of your friends are getting married, or you're reaching your 40s, your 50s, and you haven't been married, and you just decide to go ahead and marry whomever passes your way. Sometimes you end up in relationships, both males and females, because we are not saying that the females are the only ones on the receiving end of conflict in the marriage, the ones who are disadvantaged in marriage. We know that there are men who are treated very poorly in marriages sometimes. So all that we do as parents and healthcare providers, social workers, guidance counselors, teachers, deep down inside our core, it's all about doing what is best for the child. So we want to find out, if we don't intervene, if we don't get to these parents early enough, if we don't realize that something is going on with the child, what are some of the consequences that will bear out in the lives of these children? And we're going to divide the consequences into short-term consequences and long-term consequences. So we're going to ask Shernal to take those short-term consequences. So the question is, what are some of the consequences that parental conflict and maybe divorce and seeing abuse in the family, what are some of the short-term consequences on these children? Go ahead and unmute again, Shernal.
Thank you. All right, so you may see, for sure, you may see an impact, a direct impact on their performance at school in terms of their academic performance at school, where you may see a child go from doing well in their 80s and 90s, 70s even, to just performing below par in their 30s, 40s, that kind of thing. So that or that's an indication right there that there is something wrong. So we try to find out what is happening when you see that drop. You might also see that the child is lashing out in against their maybe teachers even, and I don't mean physically, but sometimes not always physical, but is verbal. They might just be lashing out at their friends, and even sometimes those in authority over them. You might see that the child might be disrespectful to the
the sex that they don't respect. So it might be they're disrespectful to a female or they're disrespectful to a male. So you see a change in their behavior, or you see that they're aggressive. And those are immediate things that you can recognize in children who might be going through such things. They might become withdrawn. You realize that they're not participating, or I mean, they never participate. They're just there and they don't want to get involved. They may not want to eat anymore. They may not want to be around people. So those are some of the short-term things that you see happening in children's lives, and they do take on a lot when their parents are not getting along. And sometimes the parents just don't realize it. They're so busy blaming each other that sometimes they do not recognize this is happening. Even the child's failure, they begin to blame it on each other. So that's some of the short-term things that you might see in children.
So if you are now joining us, it's 7:30 right now in Barbados and across the Eastern Caribbean. And this is Family Fest. We bring help, hope, healing, and happiness to families. And tonight we're discussing parental conflict and divorce in the family. I am your moderator, Dr. Renee Boyce, and we have Mr. Fabian Sargent, social worker, Donatal Cox, and Shernal Clark. They are two guidance counselors in our secondary school system. And we are about to delve into the legal and emotional processes of divorce. Now, if we cast our minds back, those who are married or those who are in long-term relationships, I don't think there's ever anybody who goes into one of these relationships and says, you know, in 20 years, that's it. I'm out. I don't want to see you. I don't want anything else to do with you. Everybody goes in with that mindset that I want this to last. I want my children to be happy. I want to be happy. But very often, you know, that is not the case. And I want us to discuss some of the legal steps that are involved in the divorce process. I know that within relationships, there are persons who believe that they've come to the end of that process and they might not know where next to go. To whom should I speak? To whom can I go? Where can I get information about how to get a divorce? And one of the things that I have learned is discussing sensitive topics does not mean that you're going to cause people to do these particular things. If you bring up suicide, for example, you're not going to be the one to cause a person to commit suicide. More importantly, you might be that one to save somebody from doing suicide, from committing suicide. So in the same way, discussing divorce and the process to divorce is not for us to give information about people to say, okay, good, I know how to do it now. Let me just bounce and roll out. That's not it at all. But we want persons to be educated. That's part of the process because sometimes we know that it really cannot work. So I leave it open to the panelists. If any of you is au fait familiar with this particular question, please feel free to go ahead and share your experience or information with us.
So I can tell you up front that I am no lawyer or I am not versed in any form of law in any way. But what I can say from my position on dealing with men specifically who would have been divorced or contemplated divorce or going through divorce, you know, I can tell you that the legal process is not easy. It's not easy. I know many, I can honestly say from my experience, most men are willing to just walk away. Most men are willing to just say, you know what, unless it's a situation that is extremely serious where there's another man involved on his house and all these things, you know, most men are willing to walk away and allow the lady to go with the children, generally. However, I know that when legal minds get involved, that don't ever happen because I guess a lawyer has to fight the best case for his or her client. And I think that is when it then gets dirty. because when the real legal minds get in and they understand, okay, they tell you this is what you're entitled to, these are your rights. You hired me, this is what I'm going to fight for you, you know. And oftentimes it changes the perspective in your mind. So you see two people, you know, you realize the situation start to get a bit ugly in terms of materialistic things, and even sometimes even custody. And you know, it is that is the system that is working. That is the system that we have set up, and where people starts to go against each other to see, well, look, okay, this is the best outcome for me. So it becomes a very selfish act, and not understanding oftentimes that there are children in the center. And don't get me wrong, because the system is set up also to determine what is best for the children in their eyes. Sometimes that don't always work out in terms of what is best for the child. That means what somebody perceive or what the system sees at that point in time. But I cannot see how visitation every other weekend can be good for a child. Do you understand? If that is a result of a custody hearing or whatever the case is as a result of the divorce, you know. But as I said, I am no legal mind. I can tell you from my experiences with people who have been through the process, my conversations with lawyers, our organization, we've had a few sessions with attorneys, particularly Shane Thompson, who's always willing to give us that legal chat, you know. So that's it for me on that legal part. I really didn't delve too deep into it.
I want to try.
Yeah, you try to stay out of waters in which you cannot swim.
Yeah, Donna can't go and then I will go ahead.
I am
Go
not
ahead.
a lawyer either. Okay. However, what I do know, first, is everybody hearing me well? Because I thought it was a bit.
You're still low.
Okay. Is this better? I have to get closer.
Yes,
Anyway,
that's better.
Okay, great. We've got a situation going where a lot of people now, because of social media, because of TV, because of movies, they're throwing around lots of words. So getting divorced because of irreconcilable differences
Yes, I've heard that term.
seems to be more amicable than the whole infidelity situation. But people are getting divorced and breaking up relationships with different things on the table. If people have been together and one party was the one who was doing most of the financial contribution to the relationship, the divorce or the breakup could take a legal entity where somebody can demand compensation for one, all of the hard work they put into taking care of the household, while the other person says, well, you know, you came in with nothing and you're leaving with nothing situation. Again, it's between those two people. Where are the children? Okay. The other thing that I've found quite often happening, especially these days, is that during the divorce process, people are still under the same roof. So they're under the same roof, trying to make the other person leave the roof. So they make things very difficult for the other adult. And again, the kids are caught in the middle. Yes, lawyers have a lot to gain from divorce lawyers, but other people have lots to gain as well. You will find that family members of either party all chime in about the divorce and about the breakup, giving all kinds of unsolicited advice on how to get out of the marriage. Sometimes people who have other nefarious reasons, in that they may, you know, once you're married, you have a target on your back. All of a sudden, you become, you know, the piece de resistance to somebody else who's out there looking for the right man or the right woman. And sometimes the outside person who is not in a relationship with either party is giving all the advice so that that person that they so much want to have becomes single. And a lot of the times we ignore this. We think, oh, that's just on movies, but no, it's happening in real life. And the children are the fault. People are told, you know, pay attention to your children. Go to every single thing at school. Go to all the school conferences. take them to a psychologist, let them get tested, and let them see that there is trauma there because of who? The other parent.
The other person.
And it happens on both sides of the spectrum. Both mother and father do that. So we have to be very, very careful when we're looking at the legal ramifications, because the law, like anything else, could be skewed and could work in favor of the person that has the most influence over the proceedings. So that's something else we have got to look at very carefully as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Very valid points from our panelists here. And Cherno?
Yes, please. I wanted to offer the other side of the situation where there are some persons who do have those amicable divorces where they agree that they are not about the whole back and forth and the drama, the court. We go in court all of this time, and there are just some people who want one court appearance, and that is to settle the matter, and that's it. And you will have those cases, and that is the ideal case where some of them do share the same lawyer because it is cheaper to share the same lawyer, and you've already agreed from beforehand that this is what we are going to do, this is what we want, and there's no conflict, there's no interest in battling for anything. So the same way that some men are willing to walk away, there are some women who are willing to walk away as well. There are some couples or divorce, the ones who want to get divorced, they can agree to keep it simple. So even for the sake of the child, and that is also important, that co-parenting, even though you, the adults, are not together or you don't want to be together anymore, we have common factors here or a common factor here, and that is the child. And the important thing is that if we as the adults can seem to get along or get along in the eyes of the child, then it makes the impact of the split so much less painful and so much less impactful on the child. The child can adjust better if they can realize, well, my mother and father may not be together, but they are getting along. For even they might, children sometimes blame themselves for the breakup or whatever. But if they can see that their parents are co-parenting well, then they are able to say, well, it is not because of me. I am not the common denominator that they're fussing over all the time. I've seen both ends of it happen because children, the ones where their parents are not getting along, they have the most difficult time. But then on the other hand, the ones who co-parent well, the children have a better chance of adjusting. And they know for sure now when we look at the side of how children play the parents, they know they cannot play the parents against each other because these two parents, even though they're not in a relationship anymore, they're still getting on, they're still on the same page so that the child knows this is how we operate. We're speaking with one voice still, even though we're not together anymore. So there are some divorces out there that are very simple and clean, and there's not all that drama and the legal back and forth.
Yeah, thank you so very much, Cherno, for allowing persons out there to understand that it really does not have to be a hellish experience.
Yes.
Now, when we were talking just now, we all had in our minds that divorce affects children. And when we were thinking of children, I'm sure in everybody's mind, we were thinking of school-aged persons. But divorce also impacts adult children.
Yes,
and then we have adult children going into relationships themselves, and then that causes a problem within those relationships. So some of the same things that happen to our children, the lashing out, the not having respect for a particular gender, speaking disrespectfully to other persons, that can also happen to adults. So those persons who are listening who have who are adults themselves and their parents got divorced, because my parents got divorced when I was an adult, and for me as an adult it was a difficult process. So can you imagine a child with hormones and pressures externally and wanting to fit in and having to go through all of this?
Yeah.
No, well, not we, you all, the panelists, really have been given a certain amount of time to discuss this particular topic, which needs 3 or 4 days itself to discuss. And like we said at the beginning, we want persons to understand some of the things that go on with parental conflict. And we spoke about the common causes, thanks to Donna. And we spoke to the different perspectives, especially the males with Fabian. He was talking about some of the things that particularly happen to males. We don't want to leave our discussion tonight and persons are not empowered. Persons aren't given tools. They're not given resources about how to manage this parental conflict. And it might not only be parental conflict for themselves, but they might be privy to other situations where there is parental conflict. So I want you to start thinking about ways that you can advise, or if this was a situation right in front of you in your place of work, how would you advise this person who has gone over the bridge of asking for help and reached out to you? How would you manage them? We'll start with you, Fabian.
So, first of all, I would try to push the position that don't let it be a win situation, because we have this idea that I must win. I must win. I going in, I want to break up, I want to divorce, so I must win, you must lose. I think that is where the toxicity really starts, And anybody reaching out to me, expressing such, it is really about getting that person to understand, is this what you really want? Sometimes you go through phases, sometimes some things you can manage, but if it is that for sure you've reached to the point where there's no fix, it is how do you then get yourself in a mental state to manage the process? Because we could talk about the court, we could talk about negotiating, but if you are not mentally ready to manage this process, then you find yourself at the end of the barrel. So for my one part, dealing with a male, dealing with anyone, any client, it is about ensuring that that individual is mentally prepared for whatever is about to happen, or is about, whatever experiences that will happen in the very short future. So, and in doing that, a lot of self assessment, understanding who you are, what's happening in the here and the now, understanding the choices that you have, understanding if you have children involved, how your actions can damage these children. So then have to really start to not think about self, but think about those children and see what is in the best interest of children. You really have to look at the holistic picture and not be emotional in your decision making, because sometimes we get so crowded with emotion that we make very bad decisions or very poor decisions. And I would encourage persons, if this is something that you definitely want to explore, you should be emotionally contained. You need to have a balance between your thoughts and your emotions. You don't want to be emotionally disconnected, and you don't want to overthink the situation. You want to, what I would consider, have an equilibrium between the thoughts and the emotions, and then have some type of balance in terms of thought process and decision making, going forward.
Yeah, the advice always is when you have to make a major life decision, that you should not do it in the heat of the moment or when you are most vulnerable, but you should take some time to process and try to make that decision as logically as possible. We are human beings and we're not devoid of emotion. So every decision will be made with some emotion. But like you say, that emotional balance is critical. Thank you so much, Fabian. Donna?
First of all, there's a difference between parental and marital conflict and the divorce. We got to realize and find out what stage they're really at, okay, as a couple. Sometimes both the marital and parental conflict could be solved when each party understands where the other party is coming from. Sometimes it really is a massive misunderstanding. It could be a clash of cultures. It could be a clash of not just being on the same page. It could be interference from other sources. And this all should be trashed out way before you get to the point where you say, I'm done with this. But once you come to that decision, it should be between the two people. And they should understand why. They should also understand the impact that it could have on their child, depending on the age of the child. Okay. And they should also look at how they're going to co parent should that time come. Really and truly, a lot of people who are living under the same roof are already co parenting, right? They're doing a type of a parallel co parenting where neither one gives information to the other about what's supposed to be happening with the child within the same home. So we've got to look at that. But by and large, what I would like to say here is that when it comes to talking about the potential of a divorce, look and see. I will remind people what brought you all together in the first place. What brought you together in the first place? And how is your child seeing the two of you? Now, how is your child seeing you as a mother, seeing you as a father? And then what are you doing to help that child understand that he or she is a part of both of you? One of the little things that I use is a tea. Well, in other countries it would be an Oreo cookie, but in Barbados I use a tea time. Make sure the tea time is room temperature. Okay. And when you're talking to the child about mommy and daddy and how they both love you and how the cookie tastes good with everything in it, what you do is you break the cookie apart so that there's stuff on both of the cookies. And you see that you are part of both your parents. But make sure it's room temperature, because if it's too cold, all this stuff is going to go on one cookie. You don't want that, right? And those are just little things that we can use and look at, but they have to understand where they are. Are they really at the stage where they're going to be calling it quits? Or are they at the stage where they recognize that there's conflict? What are they going to do about it?
Yes, I love that tea time analogy. Don't particularly, the sweets, but that I have to keep that in my brain. That was brilliant. Charnel, what are your thoughts on this particular question about starting to, how would you manage somebody who was in front of you to help the child deal with conflict? How would you manage that? Don't forget to unmute.
I totally forgot that I muted my mic. Anyway, the thing is that adults have to understand that when it comes to children, children are children, and they will see things that we don't think that they see, or they will know things that we think that they don't know. And adults have to treat children as human beings as well. Adults also have to get past their own egos and understand that when it comes to children being involved, you have to be mindful of the fact that these little people, they're sponges, and they're going to soak up whatever they see and whatever they hear. So we always say to parents, do not belittle, do not quarrel in front of the children, because they're going to pick up on it. And that is where you see adults start to argue in front of each other, and the children just start to cry because it's too much for them. So in speaking to adults and the conflict that they may be experiencing, if you find that, well, we would advise parents to be on the same page, to speak with one voice. But if you find that you cannot talk to the other person, I don't know if there is a mediator somewhere, a mutual person that they can find, because it makes no sense that you have children in school and one parent's name or one parent is being contacted by the school and the information is not being passed on, so the other parent looks as though they're not interested, and then there's a whole set of drama going on. Find it within yourselves as adults, because I find that sometimes adults will behave like children, but find it within yourself as adults to realize that the child is the one being squeezed in this press that is being rolled together. The child is the one in the middle, not like the apple that you have in the center and is rolling and coming to press that's the child in the center there. And adults have to recognize that the things they do, the things that they say, that they have an impact on the children. And they have to be very mature. And again, it goes back to what Fabian said, a mental capacity about being mature and respecting and realizing where they are at, yes. And if you find that you cannot get along and see eye to eye, then there must be a mediator that you can have in the center, a neutral person that you can have in the center who will be able to maybe be the go-between, so that communication is not blocked from one person to the other. And I think that that's something that has to come to the fore more, because there are some people who just can't get along. They hate each other so much, ain't even possible for them to get along. So there must be some person that they can have as a mediator that will be able to allow the communication to flow between the two.
Okay, thank you very much. And as we begin to wind down, my final question to each of the panelists is coming out of something that Shernell just mentioned. Shernell, you said that you shouldn't argue in front of the children, but there are going to be times in a marriage or in a long-term relationship where the parents are going to have disagreements, and we want our children to grow up being able to manage conflicts. So if they're never seeing in the home that their parents disagree, how are they going to grow up themselves to manage conflict? What are your thoughts? Each of you, what are your thoughts?
Well, not the point of not disagreeing. We know that every relationship there's going to be disagreement, but it is how you handle it. So you can have a disagreement, yes, but it is not for you to cuss and carry on and belittle the other person in front of the children. So you have to, if you realize, and I think that it comes to that point, yes, of being able to control yourself, self-control. If you realize that it's getting to that point where you are doing that, then you need to check yourself.
Right. Okay,
your thoughts, Donna?
I was going to add that even with disagreements, you can disagree and you can show the children, and whether they're young or old, how to disagree.
Yeah.
Okay. We have different sets of opinions. However, the other thing what we should not do is do not trauma dump on the child. So after your disagreement, do not go to your child by yourself and say, your mommy or your daddy, they're such bad people. They don't listen. And that's trauma dumping. You don't want to tell the child everything wrong that the other party has done. Okay, that's too much for a child. So just if there's anything else I said this evening, remember that. Do not trauma dump on your child. That's not the person who you should be bearing your soul to as a confidant in the disagreements, the marital conflict, the parental conflict, and then leading all up to the divorce.
I really wish that we had time to explore that topic, Donna. Donna, like hit the nail on the head about dumping this trauma conflict, right? And that needs to be unpacked in a real serious way, because people don't even understand when they're doing it. And children are observational learners. They learn from what they see. They learn more so, what they hear. They look at the environment. Their environment is what shapes their behavior. And that is why it is important that parents pay attention to how they treat their behaviors, especially men. I never say men. The reason being, right, there's this thing where we've been socialized to believe that we must be strong and tough, and where violence has been perpetuated by men. I don't want to encourage men, pay attention to your behaviors around your wife, around your spouse, especially when it comes when you're in the presence of boy children. Children generally, but I just want to pull out boy children because of the level of vulnerability that I see, and boys going away thinking, well, look, this is what a man's supposed to be like. So we need to change the narrative. And by changing the narrative, we have to change the environment and the culture. And we can only do that by pretty much demonstrating the behaviors that we really want to see. And I just want to leave this one point again. I think we have not been able to touch the whole concept of divorce and the church, because there are a lot of people who are trapped, who go through tremendous issues within the four walls of a household, but because they are affiliated to a particular church or whatever the case is, the children who are in that space are exposed to that level of toxicity, and it never comes out because we can't let people know that as church people, we got these issues and we won't face divorce. So that also could be another topic going forward.
Because in some churches,
I agree with you, Fabian. The time that we had here connected tonight certainly was not enough for us to flesh out all that we wanted to flesh out with this particular topic, parental conflict and divorce in the family. We had our panelists, Donatel Cox, Shernal Clark, and Fabian Sargent, and they respectively are a guidance counselor. Shernal's also a guidance counselor, and Fabian is a social worker. And they do other things in the realm of family, all working towards happy and healthy families. So that was our topic tonight. But guess what? We're not finished. Join us on Thursday the 17th, same time, same place, 7 o'clock. And what we're going to be discussing at that time is connecting families. And we're trying to understand that critical need for emotional support in family life. One of the things that I wanted us to get to tonight was emotional intelligence. And I'm sure that that's going to come out in our discussion on Thursday. Our panelists then, they're going to be Mr. Tony Olton, Gabrielle Bevel, and Juliana Daniel. So if you're here tonight, make sure you tell 3, 4, 5, 10, 50 people about tonight's session and how informative it was, and you invite them to Thursday's session. So thank you for joining us. I was your moderator this evening, Dr. Renee Boyce, on behalf of Family Fest. I hope that you have a pleasant evening, and we're looking forward for you to be with us on Thursday.
We're Family Fest. Give